Hello, I'm John McAllister with the John McAllister Sports Report. Well, today, we're getting away from sports. We're going to go into a different area, Upper Sandusky, my hometown. And here, we're going to feature Bill Latham. Bill Latham has worked with all kinds of criminal investigation. I think he was worked for the courts and did a lot of different things. Well, now Bill Latham at 65 decided he wanted to write a book. And he's written a book. It's published. It's out now. I think he started last September, and it would be interesting to see where he got his start. But Bill has written a book called Ghost Sleepers, the announcement. Ghost Sleepers, the announcement. And I have to repeat that because I made a major mistake when I did the interview. On the interview, it says Ghost Keepers at the bottom. Ghost Keepers, the announcement. And so when you see that, don't take away from the interview because I'm not going to redo it. It's a good one. We accomplished a lot. Bill did a great job. And the other thing, when Bill signed in, he because of the way his program was set up, name Marlene, and Bill, that's not his name, but as you see that's Bill. It's just we use that, and so but it's really a great honor for me to interview him, and great job, does a great job, and he tells you about a lot about the book, and also what prompted him to do it, and about his writing and everything. And I heard scuttlebutt that he may have a sequel coming. So sit back and listen. Appreciate the time, and please sit back and enjoy our video podcast with Bill Latham, author Bill Latham. Thank you. As I said on the intro, my guest today is an author, kind of an older author with his first book, I believe, local guy here in Upper Sandusky. And you know, the title of this video podcast is Upper Sandusky, my hometown. And I like to find people that have done things unique in Upper Sandusky, or left home and done some things unique there. Bill Latham, how are you?
I am very well, John. Thanks for having me.
And I could get you away from the tennis courts, right?
Yes, I was on the courts yesterday up in Toledo playing, and I'm doing some teaching. As a matter of fact, I have a lesson later today with a youngster.
That's really neat. Okay, an author. The other reason I hate to tell you this, I wanted you on because I've always wanted to write a book. And I don't know if I can or not, but I always thought, what a great thing to write a book, and that's what you've done. And I must say, at the ripe age of 60-something?
65, yes.
Okay. Well, let's do this. Let's talk about the book first.
Sure.
And the book is called, let me read it here real quickly. Ghost Sleepers, the announcement. Ghost Sleepers, the announcement. Bill, where did you come up with that title?
So last fall, I had a conversation with my wife about knocking something out that had been on my bucket list for a long time, John, and that was that I wanted to write a novel, a fiction suspense thriller, and I had an idea for a plot, and without revealing too much about the premise of the book and what it's about, Ghost Sleepers became one of the possible titles for the book. And I ended up deciding on that. And then the second half of the title, the announcement, has to do with something that occurs during the story that the reader will find out about. So those two things came together that ultimately I decided on the title. I also want to credit early on, John, if I could, Marnie Hahn Marnie is the victim advocate at the county prosecutor's office, where I worked for many, many years. And Marnie and I were very, very close. Marnie kind of acted, John, as my first editor. And I provided her the first rights of the transcript or of the manuscript. And she gave me some valuable input. And I counted on her a lot for gauging whether or not I was creating a page turner, a plot that followed, and that it was descriptive enough. As a first-time author, I had questions as I was writing about, was I being effective in terms of describing characters, events, places, and then also was I creating a story that was compelling enough that the reader wanted to turn to the next page. And ultimately, Marnie was a kind of a great sounding board for me for that, John.
Okay, let's go back. I want to hear a little bit more about the. Okay, now I've read just a promo on it. Audrey Dixon. So
yes.
Let's talk. Take me as far as you can with what the book's about. I mean, you've said it, but I have a whole paragraph here what the book's about, and I need to have my mind wetted a little bit. I need my appetite whetted. Tell me, Bill, you were in law enforcement for 40, types of law enforcement for 40 years. So that's kind of where you got some of the ideas, obviously. But tell me about the book proper first, about the plot. I mean, are they about young people, old people? What's the age in the characters?
Yeah. So you are correct, John, when you say that my 40 years in criminal justice certainly had an impact on the storyline and the plot. Okay. Although it is entirely fiction, and It does not come directly from any experiences that I had. The book is a fiction suspense thriller where a young lady is abducted. Okay. And she's abducted from her hometown. And
teenager or 20s?
She's in her early 20s.
Okay.
And she visits a local antique shop and is subsequently abducted. And a young detective with the sheriff's office in that jurisdiction becomes involved in the investigation. Okay. And as his investigation into her disappearance evolves, he suddenly makes a series of connections that the people that might be involved are very sinister, and that they have a very, very unusual mission. Okay. And that mission is eventually tied to the federal government's involvement in a conflict overseas.
Okay, wow.
And that this detective ultimately connects all of these dots, and that leads to a very, very broad and a suspenseful journey through a number of things that are occurring in our country that are very sinister. Including killings. And ultimately, the story moves through that plot line. And eventually, there are a series of confrontations and very dramatic events that occur. And this entire plot reveals itself not only to the detective, but to federal agencies that become involved. And the announcement aspect of the title has to do with the individuals who are perpetrating these crimes make an announcement to the federal government, about what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't want to go too far, but you've really given me an idea of what I'm going to be reading about, I think. And then, does it end happily ever after, or is it? You can't tell me the ending.
Let me say this.
Endings are different.
Yeah, let me say this about that.
Okay,
John, this was going to be originally, when I decided to do it, a one and done proposition. I was going to chalk this off my bucket list, and I was going to be a one-time author. As the story evolved and my imagination took over into the plot line and the characters and the way that the story ultimately was going to proceed, at the end of the book, almost everyone that has read it, and that's that's gotten a hold of me. I think I've sold somewhere around 200 to 250 copies so far.
Good start.
Virtually everyone that has contacted me has asked this question: when's the sequel?
So Bill says, I'm still into this a little bit now.
Yes. So I have decided. My initial answer was early on in the first month or two after the book came out was, if the book gains some momentum and some traction, and I can turn it into a break-even proposition or close to it, I will write the sequel. Well, I will tell you, John, that I have already started the sequel.
Good.
Yeah,
that's really neat.
I've had enough demand from people that I've sold the book to that have reacted to it that they basically said, look, you can't leave us hanging. You have to write the sequel. So I have started it.
Okay. So at the end of this one, you are hanging a little bit then, right? That's good.
That is correct. You are.
Tell me, I'm kind of is it realistic, Bill, in far as language and actions, and can I, as an old English teacher, can I see pictures every time I read this? Can I visualize, the reality of it?
Yeah. So it was certainly on my mind when I began writing as a novice writer.
Right.
Am I going to be descriptive enough that readers can do what you just said? Can they visualize persons, places, and things? I purposely left some things open-ended, John. For example, I'm not overly descriptive with some of the characters because I want John and the other readers to kind of formulate in their own imagination what a particular character might look like or might sound like.
Okay.
But with respect to places and events that are occurring, I will tell you that the book at times is very graphic. There are violent scenes portrayed in the story. The book is profane at times.
Okay.
And there's also a bit of humor here and there in the book. So I try to encompass all that and leave some of it open-ended to the reader. I don't know about you, but when I read a fiction novel or a suspense thriller, I do like the idea that my imagination is left open, that I can create characters and what they look like on my own. And maybe scenes I portray what they are on my own, and they're individual to me. Another person might read the same thing, but come up with a completely different idea of what it looks like in their mind. As an avid reader, that was something that I was conscious about when I was writing.
Okay, that's really good. Let's talk about you personally now, because we've got a really good idea. First thing, if I'm going to watch this, I want to know what the book's about. And you've done a great job telling me, and I like the idea of the realism, what you've said, because I think that's important, because people will go in the mindset, hey, this is to be expected, rather than start reading halfway through it, say, hey, this is too vulgar, this is too what, and they'll throw the book away. And I wouldn't want that. So, I mean, they have an idea, and obviously you haven't told us any plot lines or anything. I mean, basic stuff. It's really good. Okay, let's talk about you then. You, Bill, where did you come up with the idea? Is that a fair question? Or I mean,
no,
you said, first book. Well, where did you come up with the idea to write a book? Why would you want to write a book?
Well, that's a great question. And I have to travel back in time slightly, John, to explain that. When I was 26 years old, nearly 40 years ago, I was a young deputy sheriff here in Wyandotte County.
Right.
And the county ran into financial difficulties, and I was laid off. So there was a period of time where I was applying for other jobs in law enforcement, but I was unemployed. And when I was 26, I decided, I don't know where I'm going to be working next, and I don't know how long it'll be before I am working. And I decided then I'm going to try and write a fiction suspense thriller. When I was 26, I sat down at an old typewriter where you literally put the paper in the typewriter back in the old days. And I started writing a fiction suspense thriller. Now, it has nothing to do with this storyline, with this plot. Right. So I wrote for about 2 months, and then I ended up getting a job. And then shortly thereafter, I got married, and life got in the way. And I never picked that original novel back up.
Hmm.
But I always had it in my mind, and I was always enthusiastic about the idea of writing.
Right.
So fast forward through my career of 40 years as a uniformed deputy sheriff, a detective with the Hancock County Sheriff's Office. I worked at the Bowling Green State University for a little bit over a year as a uniformed officer. The vast majority of my career was spent as the investigator for the county prosecutor's office here in Wyandotte County. And I did work briefly for a couple years with the Attorney General's office as an agent with BCI, the Bureau of Criminal Investigation.
You were an agent too, weren't you? Or
I was.
Or whatever the term is.
I was a special agent for the Attorney General with BCI.
Okay.
And I was assigned to what was called SIU, the Special Investigations Unit. And we were basically involved in assisting counties throughout Northwest Ohio, in my jurisdiction, with major crime investigations that they needed help on.
Wow.
I worked some homicides, some home invasions, a variety of different crimes while I was there.
So your background then, and this is not a knock on Upper Sandusky, but it goes beyond Wyandotte County as far as experiences and things like that.
Yes, I would say that's fair. I did spend some of my career working outside of Wyandotte County, but I left the Attorney General's office to come back to Wyandotte County in 2013 to rejoin the prosecutor's office.
Okay.
And go back to work for then County Prosecutor Jonathan Miller.
Okay.
And I finished my career there at the prosecutor's office in 2018. Right. I came back for a brief stint in early 2023 when Doug Rowland took the bench as Common Pleas Court judge. Okay. And the now sitting prosecutor, Eric Figlowitz, took over. I worked for Eric for a brief period of time.
Okay, let's go. When did you find time to write this? I mean, you know, there are people that they sleep, get up and have their desk right at their bedside. They get an idea, wake up, go over and write. I mean, I've heard of guys doing that. But where do you have time to write? Back then, you know, where did you have time to do that?
When I started the book last fall, John, I had just returned from a golf trip with some friends, and I knew that I was about to have surgery on my elbow. I had a significant injury to my elbow from playing tennis, and I knew that I was going to be laid up for a couple of months and not be able to do a whole lot. And that's when I told my wife, Charlene, I think I'm going to try and knock this book out while I'm rehabbing my elbow. And I had surgery the latter part of November of last year. And
last year being most recent November then, huh?
November of 2024. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And immediately after the surgery, I really started cranking on the book. I actually started it before the surgery, but I wrote every day for about 2 months.
Is that right?
Yeah, maybe an hour sometimes, or maybe 2 hours or 3 hours. But I wrote literally every day while I was rehabbing for about a 2-month period of time. And then eventually when I finished it and Marnie Hahn helped me get through that first edit, it was then that I began exploring finding a publisher.
Okay. Now, I have down my notes here. Did you self-publish or go to a traditional publishing route?
John, I decided that being a first-timer, that I really didn't want to try the exercise of self-publishing. So I started researching publishing companies, and I eventually ended up choosing Newman Springs Publishing in New Jersey.
Okay.
And I signed a contract with them, and I sent them the manuscript, and they've been wonderful. They've been great. They did a nice job of the editing process. The cover design of the book, including the front and the back.
Let's see that. You got the.
I sure do.
There you go. Explain the cabin.
Yes.
Picture. It's hard to see, but explain that.
The cabin that's depicted on the front of the book is a very central part of and theme and location within the plot line.
Okay.
And I actually sent kind of a narrative description of what I wanted for the cover to the art design people with Newman Springs Publishing. And about 3 days later, they sent me back that cover and the back cover, and I thought they hit it out of the park. That was exactly what I was thinking. Something kind of dark, old rustic cabin, trees in the background, a little bit of fog, and then there's a mysterious silhouetted figure in front of the cabin. And that was basically what I described to them in writing, and they came up with that, and I was just thrilled with what they came up with.
Bill, how did you know about them? Google?
Yeah, I just basically Googled book publishing companies across, the United States, and obviously a number of them popped up. And Newman Springs had a very nice marketing video that I watched.
Okay.
And I thought that it seemed like a very above board organization, well organized. And I reached out to them and was satisfied from the beginning.
That's super. Well, you hit a home run on that one. It seems like.
Yeah, I think I was very fortunate. Yeah.
Well, okay. I have one more about the time, how long you've taken. It's really good, and you have to be in the mood to write. Does that make sense? I don't know if you have to be in that mood to write, or is it easy to get there?
Well, that's a great question.
I mean, no, are there times when you put the pen down, you start writing, you go, oh man, I'm not in it today.
Yes.
So there are other times like that. So people watching this don't get discouraged. I mean,
sure,
you do hit big mud puddles once in a while where you don't want to mess with it. So
I'll answer that question this way, John. Being a first-time writer, I did not use a storyboard. I had no outline.
I literally use an outline either. Wow.
No, I literally sat down at the computer once the story came to me, and I started typing. And literally, I would get to a point where I had to invent a new character.
Yeah.
And I would stop and I would try to think of a name. And I'd come up with a name, and then I would inject the character into the particular scene or situation that I was writing about. Okay. It was a very fluid process in terms of almost happenstance, because I wasn't using a storyboard and an outline. And it basically just involved chapter by chapter.
Almost free writing, so to speak. I mean,
it was free. It was absolutely kind of a freewheeling process and exercise for me. And for me, that worked. I will say, as I'm beginning to write the second one, I was a little bit more calculated. I did sit down and develop some characters for the second book. I was a little bit more calculated about that, and I took some time and developed that out, because my hope was that by doing that, I wouldn't get bogged down with some of the minutia of character development, descriptions, and all that. I would already have that in the bank. And then when I began writing and introducing a new character for the second book, it would be a little bit easier. Okay. So I have found that so far, but
that's really good.
It's been a really interesting journey. I've learned a lot, a lot that I didn't know about the process and about the publishing process and the self-marketing aspect. You have to get out there and you have to kind of self-promote.
I was going to ask you, that's one of my last questions.
Sure.
I mean, how did you market? I mean, the whole idea, you have this great idea. How do you look for publishers and things like that? Not so much marketing as much as how was it? Was it hard to find a publisher, or did you hit a home run on the first one or the second or anything like that?
It actually wasn't hard to find a publisher. Once Newman Springs received my communication, they reached back out to me and said, we'd love to review your manuscript. I sent it to them on the computer. They reviewed it in a couple of days, and they said, Bill, we'd like to publish your book. And so then I signed a contract. And basically that contract involved a list of services that they would provide to me. I would pay them a flat fee. And
reasonable? Don't tell me.
I thought so.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought so. And I would also say that I never entered this exercise with the idea that it would be a money-making process or a money-making venture. That's not why I did it. I did it because I always wanted to. And that's why I told people in the very beginning, if I can break even or get close to it, I'll write the second one. But
be careful.
I thought their contract was reasonable. They provided the editing processes. the cover design. They actually put the book out on the retail outlets, that being Barnes and Noble,
Man, yeah, you got
all of Amazon Books, iTunes, Google, and then they provide a website through Newman Springs Publishing that you can go to. There's a little bit of information on there, but I actually went ahead and hired a young lady here in town to help me with a little bit of a marketing campaign. She created a Facebook page for me and an Instagram page to try and get the book out there to a wider audience.
That's really good. That's really good. I think, is it TikTok or one of those? That's the newer for younger people, but I can't go wrong with Facebook for older people. I don't think either. And
Yeah,
are you on YouTube?
I am not on YouTube. I would say
I'm on
this.
YouTube, and so might help.
Before this book, I had never been on social media in my life.
Oh man.
Never on Facebook, never on Instagram. My job I use those as investigative tools, but me personally, I had never been on Facebook and Instagram, but I thought it was a necessary process if I wanted to reach those secondary and third and fourth layers of trying to market the book. It was a necessary process.
I think that's, for what I do now, I think that's a great move. And I think you got to quit. You got to close your ears to all the noise of people. Boy, they haven't, and I'm not putting up Wyandotte County down at all, but sometimes we're a little limited here in what we know. And that hurts us a little bit, you know.
Well, I will tell you that I've been absolutely thrilled with the support that I've gotten locally. I did a couple book signings at Creekside and 488 downtown in May. The local businesses were great. The local support that I've had from friends and acquaintances in supporting the book venture has just been outstanding.
That's really, really good, Bill.
I've had my feeling is that the people that I know that I've sold the book to genuinely liked it.
Yeah.
They thought it was a page turner, and they're not just telling me that because they're my friend, because I told them early on, please assess the book honestly for me. I want to know if I hit the mark here. Yeah. And I'm proud to say that overwhelmingly the reaction to the book has been very, very positive. I'm very thankful for that.
Sometimes positive criticism is good. Constructive criticism.
Oh, I agree.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Not so much. I always tell people, well, if you ask me, I'll tell you what I really think. But I'm going to read your book, by the way. The library is out. I checked today, and maybe I'll have to go buy one.
Well, I would be glad to. I would be glad to get you a copy. I have some here. I actually have a book signing coming up late July up at the Pan Yan bookstore in Tiffin, and I had to order some more books for that. I had ordered 100 copies after the book came out, and I'm down to about 15 left. So that's gone well too.
That's really good.
So I had to order some more. Okay.
Well, Bill, I really, really appreciate you taking the time. I think we covered it pretty well. And it's just, we went 26 minutes, I think, or something. That's a long time for me. But I was so interested in your book. And like I said, maybe I'm a little bit jealous of you. Because I'd love to write a book, but maybe I'll pick your brain sometime.
Well, listen, John, let me inspire you. You are obviously a creative enough of a personality that you do what you do with your podcast, and that you're an effective enough communicator that you do this on a regular basis with people. You've already got some tools in your toolkit that would probably make you a successful writer. And for somebody that's 65 years old, I'm going to look at you, buddy, and say, it's never too late to fulfill a dream.
Yeah.
You should, if you have an idea, go ahead and forge ahead.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it a lot.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate the opportunity.
Whoops.